Champions League pre-match live stream for our fixture against Red Star Belgrade in the Champions League. I'm just seeing now if this stream is actually working. Sorry, now just 1 second there. I think we're live now. Hello and welcome anyway to today's pre-match live stream for the game against Red Star Belgrade in the Champions League. We're just waiting official team news for obviously the starting 11s for this one. Should be out very, very soon. We're actually the only fixture where the teams aren't out yet. So the only 8 o'clock kickoff where the teams aren't out yet. So I expect that'll be coming through very, very soon. Thanks, Kyle, for that. Welcome, Kyle, Jay Spurs, Matthew Hogg, Darren Cook, all welcome along to the stream. We're going to be running through, as soon as that team news comes out, we're going to be running quickly through that. And obviously there's going to be a few talking points in that one, as there always is with Pochettino's choices. Welcome, Red Star Steve, to the stream as well. Stephen Flynn. Team news, again, just in a couple of minutes. I'm going to be running through the disappointing defeat for the under-19s in the UEFA Youth League earlier today. Also going through a few key stats for this one, and just a few things that have come to the fore in the last couple of days, obviously all with regards to Tottenham. So they're still waiting for this team news here. So while we're waiting, just put in the chat what players you'd like to see start tonight. I know there's a lot of you already saying Giovanni Lo Celso and Ryan Sessegnon in the starting 11 is the ideal choice for you, and I think it would be great to see those two in there. And it is important to note as well that Troy Parrott didn't take part in the under-19s game a while ago. He wasn't even on the bench, and he definitely did travel. So there's 20 players who travelled with Tottenham with the senior squad for this one. The 5 sort of main exclusions for this one, so 5 players who haven't travelled, are Hugo Lloris, who we know had that elbow injury that he picked up a couple of weeks ago against Brighton. Jan Vertonghen and Eric Lamela, 2 players who we know were going to face fitness tests for this. They won't miss out. And the two surprise exclusions for this one are Serge Aurier and Harry Winks. Neither of them have travelled. Winks probably the more surprising one, but that would suggest a 4-2-3-1 probably with Tanguy Ndombele and Moussa Sissoko playing in the middle of the park. Still waiting this official announcement. Should be out any minute now. Stephen Flynn saying Juan Foyth to start for this one, which I suppose is looking likely because Kyle Walker-Peters, hasn't really been in and around the squad at all this season, and with Serge Aurier not there, we could get to see Juan Foyth starting at right back. Matthew Hogg saying, do you think Parrott should be number 9? I think it is something that he could get in the future, but at the moment, Pochettino made that mistake with Marcus Edwards, where he really tried to build him up and obviously compared him to Lionel Messi. But I think what Poch is doing with Troy Parrott is trying to take it all slowly and letting him develop the way that would suit him best. And I think keeping him grounded right now is probably one of the key things with this. Red Star saying hopefully no Eriksen. Kai saying if I see Eriksen in that lineup, I swear to God, gotta play Lo Celso and Sessegnon. So it's the same thing over and over again, really, with people just not wanting to see Christian Eriksen in the squad, and he just seems to be in there all the time. And that's something I'm going to touch on in a bit as well. The comments that Mauricio Pochettino made about Christian Eriksen during the week, basically saying that he's happy with what Eriksen has shown this season. That's obviously not something that any fan really agrees with. Eriksen it's right there in the numbers. He has been really disappointing in mainly this season, but even last year and the year before, his stats were slowly kind of starting to drop. And I think we have the team news out now. I'm just waiting for it to load up here on my laptop. Nothing quite yet. But look, it does feel as though whatever 11 we do put out, it should be strong enough to beat a team like Red Star. But unfortunately, they seem to be a team who do really, really well at home, especially when they do play English teams. They've actually never lost a home game against an English team in the European Cup or UEFA Champions League. They've won 2 and drawn 2, and that includes beating Liverpool in the group stage last season. And I know Liverpool had a really disappointing run in their away form in the Champions League. They lost all 3 of their group stage games, the other 2 against Napoli and I think PSG. So it's going to be a tough game either way, but if Pochettino does go with I wouldn't say the strongest team, because our strongest team at the moment doesn't really seem to be the right team, but if he does make the good decisions, which would probably include keeping Eriksen out of this side, then maybe there is a chance here. And so the starting 11 is out now, and look, the big news is Giovanni Lo Celso is starting. So that's Lo Celso's very first start for Tottenham Hotspur. Great to see. Gazaniga starting in goals, I do expect. Thanks, Joshua, for that. Juan Foyth is in right back. Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez in the centre, with Danny Rose in left back. It's then Tanguy Ndombele and Moussa Sissoko, as we expected, playing in the middle of the park. And it's Dele Alli, Heung-min Son and Giovanni Lo Celso behind Harry Kane. So all in all, really happy with that. Juan Foyth getting his first start. We get to see Lo Celso making his first start as well. Alderweireld and Eriksen dropped to the bench. Sessegnon and Lucas, 2 players on the bench that maybe we would have preferred to see in the starting 11. But at least they're there in the squad. A bit of a surprise to see no Troy Parrott in there at all, given his absence from the under-19s game earlier today. But just to run through that quickly again, it is Paulo Gazzaniga starting in goals, 4-2-3-1, with a back four of Juan Foyth, Eric Dyer, Davinson Sanchez playing in the middle, and Matthew Hogg saying, oh no, those centre-backs though. A really kind of interesting one that Eric Dyer is starting this, but obviously Pochettino would surely have his reasons. Alderweireld on the bench if he is needed, I suppose. And as Raddy started saying, Dyer is questionable. Jimmy Page, Dyer, oh no. Danny Rose starting in left back, coming back into the squad after being suspended for the game against Everton on Sunday. It is Tanguy Ndombele and Moussa Sissoko playing in the middle of the park, a really powerful duo in there. And then Dele Alli, Heung-min Son and Giovanni Lo Celso behind Harry Kane. So a few players back in the squad, and great to see as well Heung-min Son. You know, a lot of us were kind of expecting him not to be in this team given the effect that effect on Sunday had on him. But he's there. We saw him yesterday and today smiling and training with the team, and it is great to see him back in that starting 11 so quickly after obviously something that affected him quite a bit. So look, that's a great lineup, and I'm absolutely delighted to see Giovanni Lo Celso getting his first start, because you know, we've heard from Pochettino quite a bit that it is going to take a while for him to get to full fitness. But look, he's starting today, and hopefully this will probably be his first chance to really affect a game. Because when he's been coming off the bench against late on against teams like Everton, he came off the bench against Man City as well, I think, and Arsenal. It's really hard for him to affect games like that, because not only coming into a new league, but being thrown into a game so late on when, you know, the tempo is already set. It's hard to adjust to that. But thankfully he has a chance today, and it's not. Maybe it's good that it's not a Premier League game for him to be starting the first one, because we know how different the Premier League is to any other competition out there, and he does have experience in European football with PSG and Real Betis. So maybe this is a really good stage for him to make that first start. Jay Spurs saying, Matt, is Kyle Walker-Peters' career finished at Spurs? Poch should have sent him out on loan 3 years ago. It's a strange one with Kyle Walker-Peters, because I wouldn't say his career is finished. With Pochettino, he tends to, the players that he sees having a future at the club, he tends to keep them close and try not to loan them out, because it's something he spoke about, I think, in his book written by Guillaume Balaguer as well. It was something that was kind of referenced. He likes to keep them within the squad, and he changed the setup at Tottenham so that all of the teams the whole way through the youth academies and stuff, they all play the same system, and that's a really helpful way to develop a player, so that when he does get to the stage where perhaps he is ready to get into the starting 11, he's already trained and he's used to the style that we're playing. So I think the fact that Pochettino didn't loan Walker-Peters out is probably a sign that he did have really high hopes for him. But you know, I think it's the last 3 seasons now he's actually started our first couple of games, and he started well. But if there's been, you know, other players coming back from injury, and now this season him getting injured himself, you know, it's a really awkward one. And you'd imagine with Serge Aurier now, the way he's just getting worse and worse every week, there could be a chance there for Kyle Walker-Peters to fight Juan Foyth for that position, because we failed to get any deal for a right back over the line in the summer. You know, we players like Hiraki Sakai, El Cid Husay, Yusuf Atal, who we were apparently interested in, but none of those really came to fruition. So there could be a chance there for Kyle Walker-Peters this season if Pochettino does kind of just get sick of what he's seen from Serge Aurier, because it hasn't been good what he's been showing on the pitch. Let's take a few more comments here. Jimmy Page saying, very happy with that lineup apart from the back four. And you know what, I wouldn't even be too worried about the back four, because even though Red Star do have these good results at home, they don't have much quality in that attacking line. Like, there are players like Rajiv Van La Parra and Marco Marin, who we know from having played in the Premier League before, who do have a bit of quality, have a bit of pace. But you'd imagine that with our defence, even though it is a bit different to the one that we would have played for the most part last season, essentially that is a defence that did get to a Champions League final last year. See you, Red Star, enjoy your football. That is one that you would expect to be able to keep out a team like this. And in terms of quality and what the two teams on the pitch can offer, Tottenham should surely have way too much for Red Star. But it's the daunting atmosphere and the kind of whole environment that's going to be the toughest part for this side. And maybe a strong character like Eric Dyer, who's never fazed by anything, maybe he is the right player to have in this sort of team. And hopefully that will obviously work out well for us. Arthur Everett saying, if we don't get top four, it means no money for new players, and top four is looking really unlikely already. You know, there are teams up there that perhaps we wouldn't have expected to see up there this far into the season, and probably looking like they will be there for quite a while. Leicester being the main one of those, sitting now on 23 points. Chelsea, a team who I'm kind of surprised to see up there, mainly because of obviously Frank Lampard's first season in Premier League management, but also their dependence on youth with that transfer ban they had over the summer. But they're up there, they're matching Leicester on points. Arsenal, and even like looking at the outside of that top five, making up the rest of the top half of the table, it's Sheffield United, Bournemouth, Brighton and Crystal Palace. I mean, three of those teams you would have tipped for relegation at the start of the year, and Crystal Palace kind of, I suppose, a mid-table team that could be in and around there at the end of the year. But we're already 10 points off the top four, and it's really worrying. As Arthur is saying, you know, we mightn't have any money to sign players in the summer if we don't get that prize money from getting into the top four and all that, and obviously, you know, in the future the TV rights for Champions League and stuff like that. You know, this could be a really, really disappointing season, I suppose. Darren Cook saying, off topic, but how did you become a Spurs fan being from Ireland? Love these stories. Well, basically my aunt lives over in England, and she married into a Tottenham family, and they came over for my communion when I was younger, and my dad's a Liverpool fan, so obviously he was throwing the Liverpool jerseys on me when I was a child, and my uncle offered me a fiver to tell my dad that I was a Tottenham fan to annoy him, and it annoyed him so much it just kind of stuck, and I suppose I kind of fell in love from there, which obviously has worked out well for me, because Tottenham since then have had a real resurgence and become a much better team than what they were back then, I suppose. But yeah, I know it's a bit of a strange one, but I suppose it's worked out well for me. Now, just before we get into the rest of the build-up, I suppose, for the Tottenham game, having a quick look at the under-19s game from a while ago. As I mentioned, they had a disappointing 2-0 defeat to Red Star Belgrade in the UEFA Youth League, in a really awkward position now in that group. They're 3 points behind Red Star. Bayern Munich are top of that group, as you'd expect. Red Star sitting in second, and Tottenham now in third, 2 points off those qualification places for the next round. And it was the performance that we saw from that youth side was really similar to what we've been seeing from the first team this season. And keeping in mind, these two teams played each other 2 weeks ago, obviously, when we last played Red Star, and Tottenham beat them 9-2, and to go out and Red Star started the exact same team, and there was a few changes from the under-19 side. But to go from winning 9-2 to losing 2-0 is a really worrying thing for John McDermott and Ryan Mason. But there weren't really any chances for the Tottenham side. It wasn't a one-sided game. Tottenham did kind of dominate the possession in that one, but it was all in our own half. There wasn't any kind of creativity in the side and stuff. Jamie Bowden and Harvey White were playing in the middle of the park, and they were probably, in the opening half an hour, the best players. They showed an exceptional range of passing. Jamie Bowden especially, he was captaining the side. He showed some really good quality in there, but unfortunately there wasn't much kind of connect. There a real disconnect in the front line. I think that may be down to missing Troy Parrott. But the first chance did fall to Red Star after, I think it was about 13 minutes. Their left wing Babic had a good run down the left hand side, and the defence in the midfield for Spurs were really far apart, and it left a really good space at the edge of the D for I think it's Burmaz. I'm going to try to get these names right, but I probably won't. Burmaz for Red Star, just standing in the edge of the D, and he took a good touch and set up for a volley, and he hit it really, really well, to be fair to him, but it went just wide from that volley. But there was never anything from Tottenham. I mean, they dominated that possession, as I said, for the opening 30 minutes, but never really created anything. And I think a really big part of that will be missing Troy Parrott, who, as I've mentioned, wasn't in that squad for the under-19s game. But the only real efforts they had was Jamie Bowden had a free kick from about 40 yards, which deflected off the wall out for a corner, and Harvey White had an effort from distance as well. But there was nothing. There was no creativity. There was no kind of urgency getting forward and stuff. And it was Red Star who had the best of the chances in the first half. About 5 minutes before the break, again, there was Tottenham committed a lot of men forward, and the right back Fagan Walcott, he tried to play a ball into midfield, but there was just a real lack of chemistry in the performance, I suppose. And he tried to play it into Harvey White, who wasn't even looking at the ball behind him, and they Red Star broke from there. Novakovic played a really good ball through to Pantovic, and he was kind of running in the inside right channel, and if he had squared it, it was a simple tap in for Burmaz, but he went in his own, and he did put it wide. And then just before the break as well, there was a cross from Blagojevic, which Jamie Bowden, who, as I mentioned, was one of the best performers, he really scuffed his clearance, and it went straight out to, I think it was Novakovic again, who had an effort to goal, which deflected into the keeper's hands. But even from that first half, you know, Red Star were showing a lot more, they were creating a lot more, and it didn't really change in the second half. Tottenham really struggled to get going after the break. You know, they kind of knew from the possession they had in the first half, it was all in their own defensive third, and they were really struggling to get over the halfway line, and they kind of changed their tactics a bit, and they tried to play a long ball game, and that didn't work either. and everything seemed to be falling Red Star's way. And White had another opportunity on about an hour as a volley from long distance. And White and Bowden were the only players really that kind of looked like they might create anything, or they might, they were testing the keeper from distance. There was no one up front who, Tasha Oakley Booth was playing up there, and Janelle Bennett came on as well. But none of them are at the level that Troy Parrott is at. And obviously that's why Parrott is being tipped to get into this first team more so than the two of them. But it was just really disappointing. And it was after about the hour mark that Tottenham really started to ask some questions of them. They had some good deliveries going into the box. But just every delivery seemed to be an inch or two away from the target. And it was from there that Red Star did then take the lead just before the 70th minute mark. Really, really poor defending. It was just a long ball forward from the Red Star centre-back. And the centre-back Binks went to try and head it away. I don't know if he's trying to pass it to Ioma or to Fagan Walcott further out, or if it was an attempted clearance, but it just didn't go well at all. And the ball was headed through to Radulovic, who he was in a goal, and he sprinted away from Ioma. And it was a really good finish with his left foot across the goalkeeper. And from then, Red Star knew that was the toughest part of their job done, I suppose, getting the goal on the board. And they just sat back and were really, really happy to hold on to that 1-0 victory. And we started to get possession higher up the pitch and stuff, but it never really looked like we were going to get an equaliser. The only chance that came, and it wasn't even a chance, it was a long distance effort from Janelle Bennett. He got the ball on the left hand side, and he really cleverly cut in onto his right foot, and he whipped an outstanding shot towards the far top corner. And from the camera angle right behind it, it did look as though it was going in, but Katic somehow managed to get his hand up and he clawed it out. And I kind of felt it was only 3 minutes added on that was going to be the last opportunity for Tottenham to actually get anything out of that game. And in the end, Red Star went on to get their second goal. Radulovic picking up the ball in midfield and clipping it over the top to, I think it was Babic, and he pulled it back to one more name, Piplica, who with his first touch just off the bench finished it well. And in fairness to Red Star, it was a decent performance in that they kept Tottenham out. They didn't allow Tottenham to play any football in the other half, and they took their chances when they came. But a really worrying position now that the Tottenham under-19 side are in this UEFA Youth League, as I mentioned, 3 points behind Red Star in that one now. And the games against Bayern Munich and Olympiacos still to come up. And actually, speaking of those two, Bayern and Olympiacos actually playing early in the Champions League tonight in our group, of course. Last I checked, it was 0-0 in that one. It was 50 minutes played, 0-0 between Bayern and Olympiacos. I suppose a draw will probably be the best option for us if we're going to try and get to the top of the group. But if we are just prioritising second place and getting to the next round no matter what, you would kind of assume a Bayern winner there would be best for us. I think first place is probably gone, given that we still have to visit Bayern as well. But our priority, I think, right now should be getting second place, because we haven't hit form this season, and any sort of qualification to the next round would probably be the best for us. And I'm just about coming into an hour to kick off. I see a lot of new people joining the stream here, so just going to run through that starting 11 quickly again. Paulo Gazzaniga starts in goals. It is a 4 at the back. It's Danny Rose starting on the left, Juan Foyth starting on the right, Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez playing in the middle. The two in midfield are Tanguy Ndombele and Moussa Sissoko, and then it's Dele Alli, Heung-min Son and Giovanni Lo Celso making his first start behind Harry Kane. On the bench, Vormers are back up in goals. We've Alderweireld, Davis, Sessegnon, Skip, Eriksen and Lucas. So a strong starting 11 and a strong bench there. Players like Sessegnon, Eriksen and Lucas able to come on, maybe not Eriksen as much I suppose, but able to come on and change the game if it is needed. Now I just quickly want to touch on some comments that Mauricio Pochettino made during the week. And these are one that really gained a lot of publicity for obvious reasons, I suppose. He was asked about Christian Eriksen and his performances this season so far. And the comments that he made were really confusing, and ones that not a lot of Tottenham fans do agree with. Jimmy Page actually is asking here, do you think Eriksen has lost his quality, or do you think he just doesn't care anymore? I can't believe how bad his form has been this season. I don't think he's lost his quality. Don't you think if he wanted to be signed by a big Spanish club, he'd be playing at his best to get signed or recognised? I think I'd agree with Paul O'Leary there, saying he hasn't lost quality, he's just got a bad attitude, because, as I've said all along, even despite this poor form that he's showing, he is an insanely technically gifted player, and he does have the ability to do these crazy things with the football. But the question is just, why isn't he doing them? And Mauricio Pochettino was asked about this during the week after the Everton game. He's asked about the kind of decline in Christian Eriksen's performance, and it's a bit of a lengthy quote here, but he just said, I don't think the performance of Christian Eriksen is any different than when we signed him 5.5 years ago. His commitment is the same. Sometimes we maybe need to look at whether a player has a 1-year contract or a 4-year contract. In the end, it is about commitment. Maybe players in the last year of their contract show more commitment than a player with 4 years left in their contract. But when you see Christian and you compare him to different seasons, he is the same player. So he's mentioning commitment a lot there and talking about the fact that Eriksen does only have 1 year left in his contract. And this obviously, I suppose, applies to Toby Alderweireld and Jan Vertonghen as well. Because over the summer, when there was this question about the future of these players, Pochettino was asked about it a bit, and he said he wouldn't let these things off the pitch affect his choices on the pitch, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect who's going to play well for a team. I'd have to really disagree with that, because, you know, Eriksen at the moment, and I know Jimmy Page mentioned there, if he wanted to be signed by a big Spanish club, he'd be playing at his best to get signed or recognised. But with Eriksen now, I'm sure he realises Tottenham aren't going to sell him in January. They're not going to take 20 or 30 million to cut their losses to get rid of him in January. Essentially for Eriksen, he will be leaving Tottenham soon, and more than likely it will be on a free transfer. So if you're a team like Real Madrid, I think Juventus were the other team kind of realistically mentioned as a potential destination for Christian Eriksen. For them, looking at what he's done over the last 5 years, I don't think they would be paying too much attention to what's happening now, because they can get their hands on him for free. And I'm sure Eriksen realises that he doesn't need to be, you know, banging in goals, getting assists, playing at the best of his game in order to get a move to one of these teams. Because at the end of the day, they will know how much quality he has, and they'll be willing to take a risk if they are going to get him for free. Jace was saying Poch is just trying to defend him, he's lying. I mean, I understand Poch wouldn't publicly criticise Eriksen, especially in the way that we have been doing in the last couple of weeks because of his performances. But I think it's really strange that Pochettino is trying to be so adamant and so he's so kind of sure that Christian Eriksen is the same player that we've been seeing for the last 5 years. And I mean, it's just not the case. There's absolutely no way that he is the same player that we've been seeing, because like looking at his stats for this season so far, he's played 10 games and he scored 1 goal and got 1 assist. Now that's for Tottenham, so 10 games, 1 goal and 1 assist. For Denmark, in the same time in the European qualifiers, he's played 6 games and he's gotten 3 goals and 3 assists. So it's 3 times the return in almost half the appearances. And that would bring it back to the question, has he lost his quality or does he just not care? And that would certainly suggest that he just doesn't care, because he's doing it for Denmark. And I've been watching them. They're in the Republic of Ireland's qualification group, so I've been watching them a bit. And they got a really important victory against Switzerland in their last game. And it was Christian Eriksen who unlocked the Swiss defence for them with a really clever pass to Yusuf Poulsen in on goal. And it just begs the question, why doesn't he care? Because, you know, he's going to be getting his move away, we know that. But, I mean, he's here now, and it's a club who picked him up as a young potential player, a player potential from Ajax for obviously really cheap, and brought him in, this really exciting player. But at the end of the day, as much as he probably would have developed into a world-class player, he owes so much to Tottenham for getting him to that stage, and mainly to the coaching staff that are in there now with Mauricio Pochettino. Paul O'Leary saying Poch needs to go and take Eriksen with him. Jasper saying Ziyech is better than Christian Eriksen. Ziyech, of course, the playmaker for Ajax, who was on the score sheet last night against Chelsea. And it's a surprising one from an Ajax point of view that a player like Hakim Ziyech is still at the club. So they lost Matthias de Ligt and Frankie de Jong and a few other players over the summer, but they managed to hold on to a lot of their really big players. And Faisal as well mentioning another player that we're interested in, it's Andre Onana, their goalkeeper. You know, there are players there, Ziyech, Onana, you know, David Neres, Danny van de Beek. They're these really young, exciting players who were available for cut price over the summer. Ziyech specifically had a £26 million release clause. And you know, we've seen Rafael van der Vaart talking in the last week or two, saying he has been in contact with Tottenham and he's encouraging them to go for Hakim Ziyech. And I imagine with his connections at Ajax, he will be talking to Hakim Ziyech, trying to convince him to join Tottenham. And he's a player that we need to bring in. Someone like him, you know, we can go and we can spend 60, 70, 80 million on Paulo Dybala or Bruno Fernandes. And obviously they're really good players, they're world-class players. But Ziyech could be the player that helps Pochettino bring this club back to where it was last year. Because essentially what Pochettino built on was these young, exciting players coming through. And because of how much Tottenham played a part in their development and you know, really prioritised them in making them the best player that they can be, it's that kind of, I suppose, chemistry and that kind of love for the management and the club that really got us to the stage where we did make it to a Champions League final. So maybe we could invest in 1 or 2 world-class players. But I think if we do want to get back to this stage where we were at, with, you know, playing these unbelievable football, these players as if they've been playing with each other for 200 years, they knew each other so well, someone like Ziyech could be the ideal player to bring in to replace Eriksen, because it would be like it's the exact same breed of player coming through. I see someone mentioned there, Kai Havertz. Alexander hinted, would you get Havertz over Eriksen? Jay Spurs saying Havertz would cost too much. He probably would cost too much, but as much as he would be, he'd probably fall into both of those categories as a young player who could be developed at the club. But he is also at a stage where he is getting to more of a world class level. And I see Daddy Hakim Ziyech isn't really a young, exciting player. He's 26. I'm actually not. I thought he was a lot younger than that. Ziyech, he is 26, I suppose, but maybe he's not at the same level as being brought through to be developed as a young player. But he's still, as Jace was there saying, he's getting into his prime. But there's so many potential signings out there for us, and it's just so disappointing that with the way this season has gone, it does feel as though the summer we've just had was probably our best option to get those over the line. Paulo Dybala being the main one, with being so close to getting that deal done. Bruno Fernandes, the Sporting Lisbon president said Tottenham were the only team that came in with a legitimate offer, and Bruno Fernandes did actually request a move to Tottenham. There's Rilwan as well saying, what about the Isco swap deal with Eriksen? I'm not sure there's too much truth to that, but Isco is a player that we've been linked with endlessly over the last couple of years. It's really disappointing that we seem to have missed our chance to get these really big signings over the line, and it could be, as I've been saying, a case of going back and starting again and building up these, getting in these young players and trying to build something up again. And we know Pochettino said the rebuild was going to be painful, and maybe that's what this is going to be. It's going to be what he did 5 years ago all over again, but instead of getting rid of complete and utter deadwood like Kyle Naughton, Yunus Kabul, Eddie Nkapou, Emmanuel Adebayor, there's better players that he needs to get rid of, which would maybe suggest it's going to be better players that he's bringing in. So maybe we do need to take a big step back to get to the stage where Pochettino wanted to be with us, because we do have to remember getting to a Champions League final in the first place was way beyond what Pochettino had ever even dreamed of with his 5-year plan at Tottenham. So as much as it is frustrating, obviously, to see where we are right now and how much we're struggling, sitting, I think, 11th in the league at the moment, it comes as a surprise to everyone. And it's going to take a while to figure out where we go from here and how we get there. And maybe Pochettino knew a lot more than us when he said it was going to be a painful rebuild. We did just assume it was going to be some players that we've come to love, maybe being shipped out. Danny Rose maybe was one of them that was among that. Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen, I suppose, before the season, when we did appreciate them a lot more. Maybe he meant this was going to happen. We don't really know what he was expecting from the season, because he likes to keep his cards close to his chest. But there's going to be so much change over the next 12, 18, 24 months. And it's transfers is the key part of it all. And it worked out so well for us, Pochettino's first kind of real big summer, I suppose, that the players that we did bring in turned out to be doing so well. But now with Pochettino not having control over the transfers, I know he didn't then either, but I'm sure as a new manager, Daniel Levy would have been taking his opinion into consideration a bit more. It's really worrying that if it is Levy and Lewis over the transfers, will it be just the exact same thing all over again? Or will they splash the cash on 2 or 3 players who can be added into this youthful team and really push us on to the next level? There's a lot of questions do need to be asked, and we're not going to get answers for quite a while. But Eriksen is certainly the main player that needs to be replaced in the side. And just going back in the stats again, that game against Everton on Sunday, the numbers for Christian Eriksen are absolutely dreadful, and it's probably why he's on the bench today. It could be one of the reasons, but I can't imagine there's any manager for any team in any league that would accept the numbers that Christian Eriksen came out with on Sunday. And somehow he did play 100 minutes. He was taken off for Sessegnon in the last few minutes of the 12 minutes added on. But Eriksen on Sunday had 0 shots on goal, 0 chances created, 0 tackles, 0 interceptions, and 0 take-ons completed. And he lost possession 16 times, which is more than any other player on the pitch. And like that, it's simply not good enough. I mean, as much as you can say he's had a poor couple of months, he has had a goal here and there. He has had an assist. He has been contributing in some way in some games, but absolutely nothing from him on Sunday. And he didn't even look like he cared at times when he did concede possession and stuff like that. That could have been the final straw for him on Sunday. Alexander Hilton saying, would you start playing Skip and Parrott? Oliver Skip is a weird one, because he was starting to get in the team last year and the year before a bit, even though it was mainly down to some injuries that we had, mainly looking at Moussa Dembele. Troy Parrott is someone who absolutely deserves to get some more first team football. The only appearance he's made for us is in that cup defeat to Colchester, But as I was saying earlier in the stream, the way Pochettino he tried to rush things a bit with Marcus Edwards, and he made these comments comparing him to Lionel Messi that obviously didn't work out as he had expected. He does need to take a different approach with players like Parrott and Oliver Skipp, and even looking again at that team that played a while ago, Jamie Bowden, Harvey White, Tashan Oakley-Booth. They're players who could potentially have a future in the first team. He needs to take a different approach to that, but it does feel a bit as though he may be overcompensating and trying to go the complete other end of the spectrum with Troy Parrott, which could be as equally detrimental to his development. But I think Parrott is the main player in that under-19s team who really deserves to get in this first team, and it's quite surprising that he didn't feature in that game a while ago and he's not even on our bench at all today. It's really unfair on him, and I suppose it's unfair on the youth side as well, because they went out and lost 2-0, and you'd imagine a player like Parrott with his ability and goal scoring knack that he could have changed that game. So it's, I think, a baffling decision for him to not be involved in either game today. Of course, he is fit and he did travel to Belgrade. Paul O'Leary saying, when you look at it though, if we win on Saturday, we go 1 point behind Arsenal, so it's not as far away as you might think. That is true. Like, as bad as we have been, Arsenal, they haven't had their worst season in a while. Their fans obviously want Emery sacked, but they're not as frustrated as we are. But it is really close in the middle of that table. Obviously, as I said, we're sitting on 13 points in 11th, Arsenal in 5th and 17. But it's just that next step to the Champions League where we really want to be. It's another 6 points. We're 10 points behind Chelsea and Leicester, two players who are really, really doing well this season. Now, Arsenal on Saturday are playing away to Leicester, which is a really, really tough game. And with form at the moment on paper, you'd probably expect Leicester to get the victory there. But as you're saying, if we win, we could go 3 points behind Arsenal. It doesn't seem particularly likely that we're going to win that game, because Sheffield United this season have been absolutely exceptional, and they're 6th. I mean, they're sitting behind those top teams up there, and Arsenal. But Sheffield United have been really, really good, and they have the best defence in the league. I mean, they've conceded only 8 goals this season. Their best defence joint with Leicester. I mean, they've conceded less than Liverpool, less than Manchester City. They've only scored 12 goals in 11 games, but their defence is absolutely exceptional, and it's not in any way a guaranteed 3 points on Saturday, and it's going to be a game as difficult as what we had against Everton on Sunday. Sorry, now let's go back to a few of these chats. Jerwin Stevens saying Eriksen and Dybala swap deal in January. Obviously, I'd love to see that, but at this stage, I can't imagine it would happen. Dybala is getting a bit of game time with Juventus, and they're doing pretty well for themselves. Obviously, for them, it's almost a guaranteed league title over in Italy every year, and it's just trying to make that step in the Champions League for them. But even if he wasn't getting his time at Juventus, you'd really have to ask the question, would he want to join Tottenham? Because we're a very different team now to what we were when he wanted that move in the summer. And it'll come back as well to players like Bruno Fernandes, a few of those defenders we were looking into. Tottenham over the summer was potentially a really, really attractive destination, because having just been to a Champions League final, it looked like a team who were on the up. But now it's a very, very different situation, and it's a team that needs to be rebuilt. And it's just not an attractive destination for these players who, like Dybala, could end up somewhere like Bayern Munich, who are really struggling this season, and they will have to invest in January and next summer. And they were interested in Dybala over the summer, so maybe he could end up there. And Barcelona, Real Madrid, both struggling as well, domestically and in Europe. There's a lot of big teams right now that do need to rebuild, and for a player like Dybala, he obviously has the quality to get into those teams. He'll be looking at them a lot more than Tottenham right now. So it looks like we have missed out on that deal. Bruno Fernandes maybe a bit different, because he's obviously not as big as Dybala, but we may have missed out on that one as well. Daddy the Cat saying, in the FA Cup though, we need to give our youth a chance. Yeah, I think we do. Obviously, depending on the draw that we get, we don't want to play them if we do get drawn one of the big sides, because if we do miss out on Champions League this season, an FA Cup could soften the blow, getting that first trophy in 11 years or in 12 years, whatever it is. An FA Cup trophy could be the ideal solution to what's going on right now. But if we do get these smaller teams, someone like Parrott, Skipp, White, Bowden, Tanganga as well, could be getting into the team a bit more, but obviously it depends on who we draw. Jimmy Page saying, lost possession 16 times and didn't create anything, and he's supposed to be our best playmaker with Eriksen on Sunday. It is crazy. He's just not good enough at the moment. and regardless of the ability that he does possess, when he's not providing that, he absolutely shouldn't be on the pitch for us at all. Faisal saying, we need to start today on the front foot and not let them play. Hope Pochettino isn't playing a stupid diamond. There's no... Oh, by the way, Pochettino is playing a stupid diamond. It doesn't appear to be a diamond today. Because Dyer could potentially be someone to play in that diamond, but Foyth, Sanchez and Rose wouldn't be a 3 at the back, and you couldn't really play a 3 at the back with a diamond. So I think it is going to be a 4-2-3-1 today. I think it seems as though Poch has given up on that diamond, thankfully. Alexander saying it's going to be a season like we will win the Champions League, but we will be mid-table. I suppose that is something that happened in Chelsea a couple of years ago, when they finished the season with Roberto Di Matteo. They finished 10th but went on to win the Champions League. I mean, I'd take that. I'd absolutely take that. If we had to struggle in the league all year, finish 10th, if we won the Champions League, it would be completely worth it. Daddy the Cat saying we're 10 points off top 4. If we get back to our best in the next game and keep it going and can get beat or get results against the other top 6, then we could catch up. Luckily, all 3 top 6 games we've played. It was big. I suppose it's looking a lot more important now than it was at the start of the year, getting those points away from home against Man City and Arsenal, because typically they are games that we would lose, Man City more so than Arsenal. So it could be those games against the top 6 that get us over the line. But having said that, losing to Brighton and losing to Newcastle and drawing with Watford, they're games that you absolutely 100% have to get 3 points out of. And not just for teams fighting for the league or fighting for top 4. Any team needs to be picking up 3 points against those smaller teams that are struggling. So you've said, luckily all 3 top 6 games we played have been away from home, so we could do better in the second half, only if we buck up our ideas. That is true. I suppose Liverpool as well was also away from home. So maybe getting those big teams down to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium could have a bit of a good run against them from there, because have we played any yet? We haven't actually played any of the big teams in the league in the new stadium yet. We obviously played Man City in the Champions League and beat them 1-0, but none of the big teams have been to the new stadium yet, so maybe that could be something that we do build upon. If we can get 15 points out of our games there against them, that would be absolutely massive. Paul O'Leary saying we need the home crowd behind us. I'll be there doing my best to make some noise for the Sheffield United game on Saturday, and that is something that has kind of let us down this year. And I know obviously a big part of that is the players aren't giving the fans much to cheer about. But one of the key things the club tried to do with this new stadium, we heard it from Daniel Levy quite a bit, was they were trying to make it as much like White Hart Lane as they possibly could, but obviously on a much bigger scale. And the stands are really tight to the pitch, and they're, every fan is close to the pitch. The atmosphere needs to be better at the stadiums, at the games, even though the players obviously aren't giving you much to cheer about. I think the fans, they need to try a bit harder at the games. And I know it's obviously not my place to say, I don't get over to games very often, obviously living in Ireland and stuff, but there's been a massive change in the atmosphere from the games at White Hart Lane to the games now. And I know being at Wembley for a year and a half will really affect that, because you kind of lose. I know there are a lot of fans who kind of lost their love of going to games because it was, it was such a trek out to Wembley, and it was, always a half empty stadium with fans not being allowed to stand, no one singing and all that stuff. But I think it's important for the fans to create that atmosphere from White Hart Lane in the new stadium again. Donny the Cat saying it's going to be mad when the scum come to the stadium. That'll be an interesting one anyway, but we just have to make sure they don't get a result against us like West Ham did. Paul O'Leary saying feels weird saying Tottenham Hotspur Stadium still White Hart Lane to me. Yeah, and I think it always will be, to the fans, it'll always be White Hart Lane, but I suppose we're still so close to that change. White Hart Lane seems to be the older stadium, but I'm sure in time we'll come back to calling it White Hart Lane again. Alexander going to Tottenham against Chelsea. Enjoy the game. I've got a few Red Star fans in here. Anthony Siddiq saying welcome to hell. It's going to be a really interesting game. And go back to that starting 11, Heung-min Son starting in this one. Perhaps a bit of a surprise given the effect that incident on Sunday had on him, which obviously is completely understandable. I know there's been a few fans and a few pundits criticising him for it and saying he overreacted. But it's great to see him in the starting 11. And as I'm sure we've all heard by now, Son's red card from that game on Sunday was overturned. And I said a lot about it in my match review on Monday, about why it shouldn't have been a red card, and thankfully in the end the FA have come to the right decision. But I think it is an absolute joke, and it's an absolute embarrassment for VAR that in the day and age when we have this technology there in the moment to correct these decisions, that the FA are still having to rescind a red card. And it really begs the question, why is it there? Because VAR, it absolutely hasn't benefited the Premier League in any way whatsoever this season. It's benefited some individual teams because they've been getting lucky with bad decisions going their way. But VAR, it's ruining the league, and I think the fact that the FA have now had to rescind a red card shows that it's just not doing its job properly, and it's not going to be taken out of the league, and they're making these changes to it all the time to try and improve it, and it's just absolutely not working. And it's just really annoying that we have to put up with this this joke that's changing games for the wrong reasons, getting these wrong decisions. It's really concerning that they think this is working, and the Premier League keep coming out and defending it. Thankfully, in the Champions League, it's used differently and it's used better. So I doubt we'll have any of those contentious decisions going wrong tonight. Daddy the Cat saying, seriously though, why didn't we, 1, get a sponsor for the stadium name, or 2, keep the same name? Now I was kind of the same mindset when it first kind of was announced that the stadium would be called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. The fans wanted White Hart Lane, but the club, I think, very early on said that wouldn't happen because it's the old stadium and all that stuff. But it could actually be a very, very clever marketing ploy to not have this a new name for the stadium. And I saw a post on Facebook in a group a couple of weeks ago of some fan, I think he was in Mexico, and it was when the NFL games were on in London. And he put up a picture of his TV and it said, whoever it was playing, this is the score. But venue was Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And everywhere in America, everywhere in whoever follows the NFL, the name Tottenham Hotspur is going to be on their TVs. And it's a massive marketing thing. And it's really getting the name out there. And Tottenham have been one of the fastest growing teams in the United States of America. They're kind of having this football or soccer revolution. And it could just be a really, really clever marketing ploy. And maybe in a couple of years he will get a sponsorship for that stadium. I think Nike are the ones that are being tipped the most, because the A in the stadium, in the official logo, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the A, it doesn't have a cross, and there's a stadium in Tokyo and I think in Munich, or somewhere else in Germany that are sponsored by Nike that have the same branding in the word stadium. So maybe in the long term, Nike could be a sponsorship for that. But right now, at the moment, having the name Tottenham Hotspur all over the world because of these NFL games and the football games as well, maybe in the short term it is going to be a really good marketing strategy from Daniel Levy. Jimmy Page makes you wonder if the outcome would have been different had Son only gotten a yellow. And that's the thing, as glad as we are that the red card has been rescinded, we can't get those 2 points back, because we went down to 10 men, all of a sudden it was park the bus, hope they don't score. We were in control of the game at that stage, and a yellow card for Son, maybe he wouldn't have been able to carry on himself, but we would have been able to bring a sub on, get Sessegnon on a bit earlier, or whoever it was. And personally, I do think the outcome would have been different if it had only been a yellow, but we'll never know. And if VAR hadn't been there, we wouldn't be talking about this, because the ref's point of view would be he made that challenge, he broke his leg, it has to be a red card. But the fact that VAR were there, they should have fixed that, and they didn't. It's just really confusing. Matthew Hogg saying we should have the stadium called Hotspur Way. Match on the training ground, that could be a good idea. Jimmy Page, I think VAR could be a good thing, but they just can't seem to get it right. And it seems to be only the Premier League that can't get it right, because they're making these changes to try and improve it. They have the referee not going over to the monitor, and I think they've taken the clear and obvious thing out of it. All these really, really weird decisions, and every single one seems to make it worse. So if they just use it the same way it's used by UEFA, and in some of the European leagues they're kind of doing well. The Serie A especially seem to have it working pretty well. It could work, but it's just not. There's nothing wrong with the technology, and there's nothing wrong with the system. It's the implementation that is letting us down at the moment. I was going to take a few more comments here before I go, but please make sure to smash the like button if you are enjoying this stream, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I do these streams sometimes, and I do match previews, reviews, breaking news videos, and I have my Transfer Talk feature coming back in January as well. So please, if you haven't already, hit that like button and the subscribe button. Alexander saying VAR is like a drunk person. Lewis saying, who is your favourite player and why? At the moment, it's kind of hard to pick a favourite player at the moment, but it's kind of hard to not look at players like Heung-min Son, for obviously the quality that he has, but he always does it with a smile on his face, and you can see how much the club means to him. Harry Winks, kind of a Tottenham fan through and through, breaking into the team and doing well when he does. You'd have to look at him as well. Owen Evans saying, in the VAR room, two people make decisions. The Delhi handball, for example, they went back and forth. Shouldn't then the ref go to the monitor and be the decider? And that's what I was saying in my review on Monday as well. The ref is standing there doing absolutely nothing. And if the two people in the VAR studio are at a bit of a crossroads, the referee could be the man to go over to the monitor and sort out that decision and be the one who makes the final call. But they really just don't seem to know how to use it. And I know, obviously, I don't know as much about it as they do, but when it's working so well, it works so well in the World Cup because the monitor was used. The monitor's been used in the Champions League. It's working well. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer to use the monitor. Paul O'Leary saying, half the time I think there's a drunk bloke running VAR. Matthew Hogg saying, I love the VAR song for Tottenham. DJ Samuel, VAR is a joke and is ruining football. Alexander Hilton saying, what do you think about Oakley Booth? His performance today wasn't the best, but he is a really exciting young player who we could see in the team in the near future. Jay Spurs, is Del Stroyer coming back? Well, his performances have picked up for sure, and he's obviously gotten on the score sheet a bit. I think it could be big for him if he does get a Champions League goal, because he hasn't scored in the Champions League since November of 2017 when he got 2 against Real Madrid at Wembley. So he seems to be slowly coming back, thankfully. That's something good, I suppose, coming from this part of the season. Owen Evans saying, if not, there should be an odd number of people doing VAR to the side. And again, that's what it was in the World Cup. There's 3 people in there to avoid any decisions being split, I suppose. Alexander saying the ref should get a phone to check the VAR. He doesn't even need a phone when the monitor's there on the side of the pitch for him to use. But look, I'm sure this is something we'll be talking about quite a bit over the next couple of months, maybe in the next couple of years, depending on how well this does go. Josh was saying, how's your day been, Matt? Hopefully a win today. Just wondering if the atmosphere will have a big part to play. Hopefully Lo Celso scores. But he's been good, kind of just preparing for this and getting to watch the under-19s as well, which I don't usually get to do. Unfortunately they didn't win, but it was nice to get to watch them. The atmosphere is going to have a massive part to play. I think it's probably what got Liverpool last year as well. But it'll be great to see Lo Celso score. First start, first goal. It would be great, but it's going to be a lot harder, easier said than done, I suppose. And the last comment here, Matthew Hogg saying, who do you think we should sign? I don't really know. It's really hard to decide, because the players that we should sign are probably the players that we won't be able to sign, but the players that we will be able to sign are probably the players that we shouldn't get because of the situation we're in right now. So look, it'll be addressed a lot over the next couple of months anyway, and as I said, I'll be coming back with my transfer talk feature in January. Look, hopefully we can get this game over the line tonight. I can't confidently predict a win, simply because of the way Tottenham have been playing this season. I think the last time I did predict a win was against Watford, and we know how that turned out. But look, we should be able to win this tonight. On paper, we should be able to win this, but this season has been so unpredictable and so disappointing. Absolutely anything can happen. But look, hopefully we do get the win over the line. Thanks to everyone who has joined me throughout the stream, nearly 600 of you in total. As I've already said, if you have enjoyed it, please hit the like button and click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll be back tomorrow with my match review. I'm not sure if it's going to be a video or a live stream just yet, but I will be back with my match review tomorrow. Hopefully we can get this over the line. As always, thanks for watching.